Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have Mr. Garry Haywood. How are you, Garry?
I'm fine, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me on the podcast today.
Nice to see you. And it's nice to see that your shirt matches your wall, by the way.
Oh, right, okay.
It's like camouflage.
I try to be colour coordinated. I do have a shirt that's almost exactly the same colour as the wall. And every now and again, I use the wall as the green screen when I'm wearing that shirt. It's quite hallucinogenic.
That's cool.
for my.
It's you're looking very eco today. Obviously, for people that are listening on Apple Podcasts, you probably won't see this, but if you go and see our YouTube edition, you'll probably see this. Anyway, so whereabouts are you joining us from today?
I am joining you from the very sunny Liverpool.
Sunny? Okay.
Yep.
It's usually rains in Liverpool, isn't it?
It does rain quite a lot, and I'm having to. I've got my blinds on to stop us being blinded by the sun, or at least for me to be washed out by the sun.
You'd be singing some Kinks then, won't you? Something like that,
Yeah.
Lazy on a sunny afternoon.
Yes.
But obviously, we can't speak about the Kinks when you're in Liverpool.
No,
so a little bird told me that your location is a stone's throw from a very famous person's backyard.
Yes, absolutely. From George Harrison, where George Harrison was born. So tiny little terraced house that's about 200 meters away from where I am. And I don't think I could throw a stone there actually. I'd have to follow it and pick it up a few times. But yeah, it's not too far away. And I kind of live on the edge of what we call Beetleville.
Oh, really? Is that what they call it, Beetleville? Right, okay.
It's just, like some people call it locally, so you know where it is.
Mm.
So it's kind of connects from Penny Lane to Strawberry Fields, and then up to the Abbey Cinema, which is in one of the Beatles songs,
right?
And that kind of triangle kind of encompasses the most of the Beatles.
Well, where John was born and Ringo and George,
where all the guys were born or lived or grew up. Some places where that the song's about, the youth club where they met when they were still the Quarrymen.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
So
that's very cool. Yeah, it's funny. Last night I was watching. There was a tribute to George Harrison actually and they were playing Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, and Prince. And Prince was on lead guitar. God rest his soul. Playing while my guitar gently weeps. The solo in that is absolutely mind blowing by Prince. And at the end he just throws the guitar into the audience. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you got a Telecaster, you got to just throw it away anyway. I don't like Telecasters. Anyway, so just jumping into the show. So thanks for coming on the show. I know we met a while ago actually when you were we were both actually part of a investment day or investor showcase. I can't remember which company it was. Can you remember what that was? It was to do with
it was Evolve, Creative England Evolve program.
That's right. Yeah. And I think I didn't pitch for the comedy crowd. I know that you were pitching for your business, which I know we'll come to in a second.
Yes.
And then what I was taken with, because Sean obviously watched everybody else's pitch, was that the stuff that you're working on is kind of like absolutely transformational, and that's why I was just so keen to get you on the show. So thanks for giving us the time. I suppose one of the things we've done with this episode actually, which is good, I'm going to continue, is we're using a new platform. So we're down by the riverside on Riverside FM. I've jumped away from Zoom. I've been Zoomed to death in the last 18 months. So let's see how this lands into the audience and how the quality compares. But I think it's going to be better quality audio and quality video than Zoom. So Riverside.fm is apparently what is the way to go. Anyway, in terms of Garry's world, what goes on in Garry's world? What's happening in the morning in Garry's world today?
So the morning is generally waiting for the bathroom to two teenage daughters and a partner, and there's like a massively compressed moment where everybody's like screaming for access to the bathroom and to get ready, and that's usually what's happening. While I just sit around waiting for. You
got to get up earlier. That's what you got to do. You got to be like like the people in when you go to Spain. When you go to Spain and when you go out and the towels are all out.
They're all already there. Yeah, beat them to the deck chairs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So actually, what normally happens while that's doing is I'm literally picking up kind of emails and Slack chats and stuff that's happened overnight. So I turn my phone is on Do Not Disturb from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m.
Okay.
And so what I'm normally doing when I'm waiting for that is just picking up, catching up with the world. Because it's like, America has been up and awake during that period, and the Far East is
he's rocking and rolling. Yeah.
Yeah.
What so what you're saying? You turn off your notifications, or you do not disturb on your phone, but then you're still getting the Slack messages through.
Well, I don't see them until 7 o'clock. So what happens at 7 o'clock when Do Not Disturb comes on, my phone just goes ding 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 ding, and you just go, oh gosh, But that's really the start of the day. Just kind of picking up on those things and realizing how much superfluous communication I'm involved in.
But do you have like a morning routine then before you go before you start the work, or do you go straight from the bed to the bathroom to the work?
No, so it's like I like to have like a little bit of separation where I just get some time to think about some other things, think about myself and family and stuff like that, and before jumping into work. So even if it's just like a 15-minute period while I have my breakfast or something like that, I try to have that break so that just to have that little bit of day. One of the things of not going to an office anymore, it's like I used to have that while cycling.
Okay.
And I don't have that anymore because I just haven't found the will, I guess, to kind of go, I will go cycling for 45 minutes as though I'm going to work. Because the way I used to go to work was I didn't work very far from here, but I used to cycle in the wrong direction.
I'll go the long way around kind of thing.
Yeah. So basically my general view was if you go in the wrong direction and you're not feeling up for it, you turn around. Right? And you've already cycled a little bit further than you would have done if you'd have gone directly.
Right.
So, but if you're feeling up for it, it's like you can keep going, and it's like it's like go in the wrong direction, and every turn that you arrive at is the turn that takes you back to work. And if you keep going, that you're going to get to another turn, and you're just increasing the distance from that.
So you put all the Lycra stuff on, like a time trialist kind of thing.
I probably wouldn't today because I've added a little bit of girth during the last 2 years. But yes, I like to I like to feel the air in my.
You like to Lycra up.
I like to Lycra up. And not. It's not specifically about the Lycra. It's about the kind of the fluidity of not having any hanging clothes and you're not going to get wet, because I think that's not like. With the cycle.
That's because you're going so fast, Garry, that the rain doesn't even hit you. You see?
Yeah. So the that rate because it's one of those things once you're in the cycling mode, you've got to cycle through the rain. Right, it's like because otherwise you don't cycle in the UK, well, especially not here on the northwest Atlantic coast. So,
why?
So that process.
Why not?
Well, because then it's like, because it's a challenge. If it's like lots of people do that. They start cycling and then they go, oh, it's too rainy today, and then guess what? It's going to be too rainy tomorrow, and so on. And it's
they give up basically. Yeah,
because it rains so often, and it's like, and I think once you kind of get into the I cycle in the rain, and the clothes that you're wearing to cycle are clothes that were designed for cycling in the rain, right? Which tends to be in the lycra.
Yeah. So it just bounces off you.
It bounces off you.
When I was in Yorkshire, I used to go cycling every day. Actually, I mean, I'm going to get back into it, but I used to do 35 to 40 miles a night.
Yeah.
And it was even snowing and hailing, and it was pretty wild there around Home Firth and stuff like that. So, you just got to get into the routine, I suppose, and make it part of your habit, haven't you?
Yeah. And I've just never been able to do that while I've been working from home or permanently, unfortunately.
Well, maybe there's a learning there. You see, you put the lycra on, it's going to inspire you to jump out of bed, get on that saddle.
What's going to happen is I'm going to put lycra on in my first meeting, and I'm going to be sat here like a fool, still wearing lycra. All I can say to you is that when I was working at Tesco, we had a board meeting with the joint venture partner on the mobile side, and one of our main board directors, who will remain nameless, but he knows who he is, cycled from our headquarters, from home, to a very, very far location for this board meeting. He actually turned up to the board meeting in his lycra, which is pretty impressive, actually. It certainly caused a stir. But he was fully garbed up. So, there was a cycling group called the Barking Badgers at Tesco. That was run by some of the main board members. It was quite amusing. Yeah. So anyway, we digress. Cycling. So in terms of you talked about your morning stuff. What in terms of what's going on in your world at the moment? What projects have you got at the moment? What's going on in the Haywood Empire? Yeah. So basically, we're in the perpetual launch mode of a startup called Kinicho, which is delivering a new approach to spatial audio, and in the real deep dive of that moment is we're on the final leg of a product launch, which is happening in about 7 weeks.
Oh, fantastic! Exciting.
Yeah, which is great. It's taken us ages to get here, and we're just so at the moment we're just kind of on the first round of beta testing. So that's what preoccupies me at the moment. How is that going? And the attempts to encourage our beta testers who are really excited to have the technology, but not so excited to give you feedback.
Okay.
But
so they're playing too much, but they don't write down the experience enough or give you the feedback.
Yeah, and it's always that difficulty of kind of. I mean, especially because it can sound a bit pompous that you go, well, we're giving you access to some new amazing technology, which is why you were eager to be on the list. And and for that access, we would like you to be a bit more forthcoming with your feedback. Is that consumers or is that actual businesses or? No, these are audio producers. So some of them are artists, so musicians and other sound artists, and some of them are engineers, stroke producers who are helping artists deliver their product. Okay.
So kind of like pop stars and rock stars and stuff like that.
Yes, there are no stars in there as far as I'm aware.
Future stars,
possibly. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and that's because that's really that's our kind of beach head of what we're doing is to get into that group of, and I'm sure we'll get to why that is at some point.
So I suppose the quick question was that you mentioned a company called Kinicho. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
What's the origin of using that word then, or that phrase? Is there some history behind that?
There is indeed. So my co-founder Stefan is part Greek, part German.
Okay.
Everything. So he likes to name the products and the company and so on, and everything he names has got some kind of ancient Greek thing to it.
Right. Yeah.
As part of, Greek people are very proud of their ancient history. And so Kinicho is a compound of kinetic, which is about movement, and echo, which is the sound that's outgoing, if echo is the sound that returns. So it basically means moving sound.
Oh, fantastic!
Which is part of what we do. So it's kind of we're the spatial sound that we have is very much focused on kind of dynamic interactions of sound in virtual spaces.
Interesting. Yeah, it's so. I mean, it's that's cool. That's cool. I mean, in terms of the origin of what was the trigger that got you to start Kinicho? Then what was the kind of backdrop to that?
So
what was the aha moment, I suppose?
Yeah. So the actual aha moment that made us start Kinicho was that we'd been thinking about a solution to a problem that exists in spatial audio for a long time, something that we knew about and had experienced as producers and engineers ourselves. And when we had the aha moment, kind of coincided with the start of VR.
Okay.
And we knew a few people that were having this similar problem, and so we ran a trial, an experiment, to see whether we could solve just one part of it, and we did. And for a company, and that was the kind of like, right, okay, this is our core idea looks like it's going to work. Okay. So let's do it.
Your hypothesis kind of thing, yeah.
The hypothesis, yeah.
And what was that? What was that project?
So that project was a brand activation for Absolute Vodka.
All right.
And they were trying to kind of align themselves with a bunch of media technologies for a mark they called London Electric. No, Electric was the brand.
Right.
So it's like a silver bottle and with electric blue typography. And they were putting on an event which was part of a social media competition to attend like a nightclub in London with some of the world's best DJs who were going to be playing in a special room that was made out of all the best and LEDs with lots of infrared tracking, and so if you went towards the DJ, you would be kind of shown on the screen, but not. Okay. So the room was very, very interactive.
Very funky, yeah.
It was very, very funky. And then in another room, they had this VR experience in which 5 people were sat around a table wearing these incredible looking adapted VR goggles that made it look very sciencey. And
they weren't using the Oculus ones from Facebook.
They were using the original Oculus Rift, so the first development kit.
Cool.
But they had built like visors around them, so they looked even more futuristic. And that process was some music that had been designed by one of the DJs who was playing, and it was interacting with a landscape that was created by this company called Marshmallow Laser Feast. And we were taking the sound and spatializing it so that wherever you were sitting, because you were sitting in relation to the other people, like a campfire type scenario, where you were watching this, that what you heard was always from your perspective.
Okay.
Right? So everybody had a different perspective of the same event. Right. So, and it was literally the first time, we've had a few of these. It was the first time anybody had done multi-user audio from individual perspectives.
Wow.
In VR. And that was kind of experiment number 1. And to test whether some of the technology that we put together worked in that process, and it was an incredible experience actually.
And I suppose so. A couple of questions actually, because you mentioned spatial sound.
Yeah,
and I know that. So I was in London the other week, and I went into a certain retailer, and they had the AirPods Pro, which which is the headphones, the on-ear headphones over the ear, and obviously
over the ear, the AirPods Pro Max.
Pro Max, yes, Max. And obviously, it's all Apple, it's all sexy, it's all design, etc. But but what I noticed that they look quite space age, is that they seem to be promoting from Apple the kind of spatial sound, tagline. I mean, for people that are listening on this today, and obviously are not kind of producers or DJs or audio gurus like you, what do you define as spatial sound?
So spatial sound is the simplest way to think about it is the attempt while wearing headphones to convince the user that they're not wearing headphones.
Okay.
Right? So basically, in the real world, we can hear sounds above us, behind us, in multiple directions at once, and it's always spatialized. It's always in the space around us, right? So we know that it's coming from a given direction and with a given distance. And when you're normally listening to headphones, the sound is like it's in your head. So you're listening to headphones now, and I guess some of the listeners are, and my voice will sound like it's in your head and not outside in the world. So there's a detachment from what you're seeing on the screen and what's in your head. And spatial audio is an attempt to resolve that by making things sound like they're in the environment. So basically, so that you go to listening like you listen normally, right? And that makes a lot of sense if you think about it from a VR perspective. That what you want to do when you're in VR is you want the sound to be attached to the object that you're looking at in VR. But then then we can move on from VR, which is like the obvious case, to what Apple is doing. So Apple's first venture into this a year ago was to say, if you use AirPod Pros or AirPod Pros Max, and you watch a film on your Apple TV or on your iPad or even on your phone, and you have spatial audio turned on, you will be listening to a sound that's akin to being in the cinema, in the actual theaters.
Okay.
And so the sound will be coming from all around you.
Right.
And they have this additional aspect to it, is that these headphones have the ability to track the orientation of your head. So as you track the orientation of your head, the sound stays in the place that it was in the virtual space, but now the relationship between you and your ears has changed. Between it and your ears has changed. So, it would be exactly what would happen if you were in the cinema, you were watching a film, and somebody was throwing popcorn at the back of you, and you turned round. The sound would still be coming from the screen, but it would now be at the back of you because you've turned round.
Yeah, okay.
Right, and so it's attempting to do those two things in one go. Now, ordinarily in the cinema, you don't really turn around to do that. So Apple's next part of the venture was then to release through Apple Music what's known as Dolby Atmos music mixers. And these are mixers that have been made of music for consumption on 12 speakers. So seven at your head height, which are all around you,
right,
at different angles, and then 4 that are above you, 2 at the front and 2 at the back. And that kind of gives you a dome of sound. And so now producers are trying to work out how best to make the experience of that sound to give you more presence and so on.
So like be more immersive kind of thing.
For it to be more immersive. So there is actually a battle going on at the moment between Dolby and Apple. And Dolby would like to call Dolby Atmos music immersive music.
Right.
Apple wants to call it spatial music because Apple's already invested $250 million in creating this brand around itself where it's trying to own the spatial audio space.
Right. Okay.
And so,
Okay.
And there is a third naming convention to this, which is what was happening before either spatial audio or immersive audio, and that was called 3D audio.
Okay.
And 3D audio was much more kind of games orientated, but you can see all of them are really describing the same thing, and what they're trying to describe is that the sound is in the 3D space that you're in, even though it's in the virtual space around you.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. So they're kind of trying to project. They're trying to project the online experience into your kind of front room or wherever physically you are.
Yeah. Well, wherever you might be. Yeah. And I think that's and there's a really good reason for it in some senses. So since just from a headphone perspective. So this is another one of those things that actually motivated to start thinking about this originally. Is in 2010, I saw a market analysis report from GfK that showed for the first time headphones had outsold the domestic hi-fi and home cinema equipment in the UK. It was just for the UK.
Right.
And my view was, okay, there's a big shift in the market dynamic, one, but also because this must mean now that more people prefer, or at least listen on headphones as their primary, it changes the way that we're listening.
Right.
It's going to change listening habits. And when you are, as we've already...
So what you're saying is, right, so they're having headphones on rather than having speakers in their room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's so.
It's more personalised, isn't it? So,
it's much more personalised, but also there's I think one of the things of the last 25 years since the kind of the dawn of the mass internet is that what we're seeing is lots of different convergences. Of some of them are technology convergences, and some of them are experiential, and that shift from ownership to access,
yes,
stuff like that, and it's like
the macro trends, basically. Yeah.
So those macro trends, and they're part of that process. So if you're spending £550 on the AirPod Pro Max headset, you want it to do a little bit more than just play music, right? In the way that's in your head. Right, so for it to be able to give you this cinema experience when you're watching a film, even though you might be on the bus watching the film, that it kind of it increases the value of your expenditure, doesn't it? And I think that dynamic is part of that driver, and people do want more and more. Because the technology is always promising that, and actually this is part of why I'm in it in general, is that technology, and not just digital technology. So like right from earliest recordings, the telephone and things like that. They're doing like a few things that kind of intertwine together. So one, they're reducing distance, and two, they're giving you access to things that you couldn't be at. Right. So you couldn't be at a recording of I don't know, one of the first great artists to be recorded. Right. You couldn't be there because usually it's like they were American and they never travelled. There wasn't the kind of
there wasn't like an ability to be either view it or actually experience it. Yeah.
Right. And so all those kind of things then start to, and so now you can buy that and as a record and play it on your, single-horned gramophone. And then a little bit later, it's like you don't have to own a gramophone, you only have to own a radio. And these are all giving us access to experiences that we're not part of, but would love to have been part of.
Yeah.
Right. And so that to me is not really a thing that comes with digital technology. It's really an experience that has a fundamental human urge behind it.
Yes. Okay.
Right. As soon as you've heard that, that, and you can go back to even before technology, as soon as you've heard that there was like there's a great song going round, and you can buy the music paper for it. Somebody will buy the published music.
Yeah.
Somebody will learn to play it, and then now you're all going to gather around while they play it and go, wow, that's amazing.
Oh, which is this concept which I know is now getting more popular because of the concepts of Facebook, these digital campfires. These kind of
digital campfires.
These people are kind of birds of a feather who want to break away from the big platforms, but then they need to have an experience where they're all together, but physically they might not be together.
And that's coming. So the next stage of the internet, so everybody's talking about it as a metaverse at the moment, is exactly that process. It's like, and one of the things that's happening in there is that it's starting to deliver the interface around real world kind of physical environments. And when you start to go to those physical environments, you're then engaging with those environments like they were real, right? So if you think that, the thing that you're doing when you're watching a movie on an Apple iPad is kind of partially engaging with something real, with the sound system of a real cinema theater. When you're in, Fortnite game, and you go there, so lots of people think, I just used it, Fortnite game. Actually, Fortnite is a little bit more than a game, because it's really an island in the metaverse that you go to play games, but also the island is being built by the users. And right, and as it's being built by the users, it's starting to see other things happen. So recently, I think at the beginning of July, Travis Scott, one of the world's biggest pop artists, did a performance in Fortnite, 12 million people, live audience, right? And in that, when you're there...
So you create a concert. You create a concert within Fortnite.
Within Fortnite, 12 million people turn up live. And so you're not... And I think this is really the interesting thing about it, which kind of touches on the campfire idea, is that when you join Fortnite, you don't join to watch that concert. You're not in a space with 12 million people. You're in a space that you've already been in with your tribe.
Right, okay.
That might be 10 people, it might be 100 people. It depends on how big your community is.
Right.
You're joining in that space, and while you're watching the concert, because basically you're on the island, Travis Scott is effectively a giant, so it doesn't matter where on the island
you can see him.
Right?
I've seen the video. I've seen the video.
Yeah, and the music is going on, but while that's going on, you could also still be playing a game. You could still be having a conversation with your friend, just as if you and I went to see the Traveling Wilburys without George Harrison. We could be sat there saying, wouldn't it be great if this song was being played by Prince? Right? And we would have that conversation, and the concert wouldn't change, right? And it would be a real social interaction that's much more multi-level, multi-layered. And this is what everybody's trying to get to. And the technology we're building is to try and make the sound part of those communication and connection experiences more like reality.
So is the analogy you're trying to create an audio experience which is like being at a concert, a live concert, or
no? It's much more generic than that. It's literally, we're like trying to create an experience where it's just like reality. And if the reality that you're in is a concert, it would sound like a concert. And if the reality that you were in was a meeting, it would sound like a meeting.
Okay.
We have no preference as to the type of content. So ultimately, we're after being... So if you think today, the thing that everybody, when we're listening, and all your listeners that are going to be listening back to this, it doesn't matter whether they're listening on speakers or headphones, the format of the audio that's being piped to them is stereo. And in the future, the format that is being piped to them, we are trying to make it sonic reality, which is our format. So we're literally trying to entirely transform the way we listen to sound.
So obviously you mentioned some big brands there. You mentioned Apple, you mentioned Dolby, and you know what I remember is the kind of concept of the surround sound. Yeah, that's their kind of there was their mantra, wasn't it? You know, Pearl and Dean, ba 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 ba, all that kind of stuff. When you go to the beginning of the beginning of the cinema program.
Before you're introduced to a curry house advert.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I haven't been recently, but anyway. But what's so if you look at the kind of shift, the where we are today and then where you're going to take it, how would you describe that?
So that shift between where we are currently is we're at the bottom of the ocean trying to find a way to the top, where Dolby and Apple are, and the thing that we have got as our flotation device is a technology that inverts that relationship. We're way ahead of where they are in terms of the technological process. So
you're saying that as an enterprise, as a business, you are, you're an early stage business, and obviously, Apple and Dolby are a major multinational, global multinational. But then you said it's reversed in the capability.
In the capability.
Wow.
That's that. Yes, that's the.
And and a little bird told me actually that there was an interesting thing you did in Shoreditch. Could you explain to the audience about that one? Because that was really that sounded really cool. I didn't need an invite next time you do that.
So that was the for the launch of an audio book by J.K. Rowling, which was it's called The History of Quidditch, so it's a kind of a spin-off from the Harry Potter series, and she was releasing the audio book as part of Comic Relief in 2017, 2018. They wanted to give 250 Harry Potter fans an experience where they could, those fans were experiencing the game of Quidditch, but in sound. Right, so that to keep it on the audio level, and so we used again another experiment. We took some of our technology and made another part of the engine, which is like a really important part, actually, as it turns out. We didn't realise that at the time, but it's very significant. So that we could create basically a digital twin of the game of Quidditch happening in a stadium.
Okay.
And we can extract from the digital twin 38 speakers feeds, so like virtual mics, where we extract 38 speakers, and those speakers are then enveloping the audience in that, and then the wizards are flying around the auditorium chasing the quaffles and the golden snitch until the game is won. And it's kind of like a match of the day type highlights.
Right. Okay.
Of that game with two characters from Harry Potter who are kind of narrating it. One who is like the commentator narrating on the game, and the other who is like the local gossip.
Okay.
Who is gossiping about who's in the crowd and who sat with who and so on. Right, and it was a really great event, and the most powerful part of it is that at some point in the process, one of the wizards dives down from flying up in the sky, and this is all happening in audio. So they dive down kind of to ground level to chase the golden snitch, and the audience literally parted. Right,
really?
And it's incredible. I've got a photo. I don't know how I could perhaps share that. I don't know whether that would work in this thing, but yeah, it was an incredible moment.
So they basically there was nobody physically there, but they moved based on the audio.
They moved based on what's called psychoacoustics, right? So to understand this process at the level that we've gone to, you have to understand a bunch of things about the physics of sound, so acoustic physics, but also what's known as the psychoacoustics of sound, which is the thing that the auditory cortex in your brain is doing lots of processing to make judgments about what's going on with the sound that it can hear to make sense of it. Right?
Right.
That's where the sense bit comes from.
Okay.
And that's happening in the brain, not the ears. The ears are just two receptors,
Okay.
two sensors that are outside the head, and the auditory cortex is making sense of the differences between those two ears.
Wow.
Right, and so that process of doing that with Harry Potter in this church, and the church is London Symphony Orchestra's music room.
Okay.
So it's incredibly well treated acoustically. So it was like, it was like having basically it was like having a blank canvas, but the best canvas in the world with content written by J.K. Rowling. So some of the most amazing creative language in that process. Then the sound design was done by Pinewood Studios.
Right.
So, some of the best sound designers in the world. And then we got to mix it into our spatial approach and really make it come alive. And it's another. So that was the world's biggest. And we only realised afterwards we should have had like the Guinness Book of Records there, because that was the biggest ambisonic event the world has ever seen.
Really?
So another one of those firsts. So yeah, for an audience of 250 people. So ambisonics is usually something that you do in kind of like, at the most, maybe about 20 people. So 250 people have kind of really extended it. But we love doing stuff like that. If people just go, can you push the envelope? We will say, yes, let's find a way to push the envelope. As long as you've got the funds to do it.
Wait. Show me the money. You just remember me when you said Guinness Book of Records, I was thinking about Norris McWhirter. You remember him? Anyway.
Yeah.
It's amazing when people talk and you're listening and it kind of triggers these kind of memories in your head.
Of those things, yeah. Absolutely.
So, and one thing we talk about on the show. I mean, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for explaining what that's all about. I mean, that sounds like a massive, massive industry shift, and it's like it's a big mission. So
it's a big mission, but the momentum is already there. And one of the things that's great from our perspective is that shift is being powered by Apple.
Right.
It's
been amplified by Apple.
And that's a great thing. So like, a year ago, so I did a podcast last week with somebody else, and he was saying, he asked me, what's the difference between since Apple has been out there and before that? And I was like, well, the key difference is before Apple turned up, and everybody would ask me what spatial audio is, I would have to like make a lot of effort to kind of.
So Apple have been educating the market, haven't they? Yeah.
And today it's like I have very, very much fewer of those conversations for that reason, that Apple are educating the market, and if it's been blessed by Apple, it's kind of it has.
It's been anointed.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of this show, I mean, what we talk about is the kind of the peaks and valleys. I mean, you talked about, I think, the mountain that you're climbing, which is from the bottom of the ocean to the top of the mountain. What would you? I mean, you may have some other kind of examples of that. But I suppose I was also quite interested in some of the challenges that you've been going through, I suppose, and some of the obstacles and hurdles.
Yeah. So the valleys. What's the deepest ocean valley? What's that called again? There's something trench.
A gorge. Oh yeah, a trench. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something trench that's like 10 miles deep or something, but it's at its deepest. And sometimes it feels like you're there under the weight of the pressure of the ocean, and that kind of in an upwards direction is the top of the mountain, but trying to see how you get up there and how you tell people that process is like it's a constant struggle in which you wonder where that is. And it's like, we mentioned about my morning routine. The thing that I didn't say is that, is every day I ask myself, am I working towards a goal that's achievable?
Right. Okay.
Because, because sometimes it can look, and we definitely get this as feedback from some people, that it seems like an impossible task to take on the might of Dolby,
right,
and Apple. And I don't know whether I'm not sure that that's the task, but that's certainly...
Or take on or collaborate, ultimately, I presume.
Yeah, exactly. But we certainly want to be up there with them. And getting up there is a real challenge. And the biggest challenge to that, from a practical point of view, is cash. Right? And trying to get people to invest in this process has been really, really difficult, and that's partly because of the way that the investment industry works, and its kind of its models, and what it thinks about founders, and what kind of founders are capable and not capable, and so those kind of things.
What, you mean so some biases? You think there's some biases come out from that? Do you think?
Oh no, definitely. So when we first had the when we first had the idea, when the first step to building all of this, and this is something that I'd done previously in my career in IT, is that when you're prototyping a product, you don't make the product. It's like you make the components, and you validate that all the components work.
Yeah.
And once you've got all the components, you can then start to work out the configuration of the components to turn it into a product.
Right.
And at the point where we had got all the components, I start to ship around the company as an investment opportunity. And the biggest response that we got was, "You guys have no credibility in this field, so we would never back you." Right? And that was genuinely honesty from some people. And we were like, "Okay, that's fine." It's like I kind of.
So they're looking at the team. They're looking at you and your team, and they're saying you don't have the credentials.
Yeah, because the way, in this industry, and it's very straightforward. So all of the big companies that have got this capability today. So Apple, Dolby, Facebook, Google. Google is the most obvious actually for this. Their example is really, really useful. Is Google had when they were creating their cardboard product back in 2013, they had absolutely no capability for spatial audio, and they went out and they bought a team from a university. They just acquired the whole team, right? And they took them in, and they're all PhDs, all working on this.
Right.
There's about 13 of them at the time, and then they started doing something, and then another team that was spun out from Trinity University called Thrive.
Oh, you mean in Dublin? You mean
in Dublin? Yeah. Google acquired them as well, so added another 24 people to that team, right? And each one of them is in that team because they're either working on their PhD or have completed it.
Right. Okay.
We do not have PhDs in this field. One of us has a degree in the field, and the other doesn't. So, and I'm the one that doesn't have the degree in the field. So we don't look like we've got that capability. So,
but you're the business founder, though. You're the business founder, not the technical founder. Is that right?
Yeah. So I bring some technical bits to it about how to build and ship product. The actual audio processing itself is something that Stefan, my co-founder, he is. So in that kind of gloriously silly thing that you do in startups where you give yourself C-suite names, he is the Chief Audio Research Officer, right? So, I've
never heard that one before. CASO, okay.
CARO, but no, we invented it for him.
Oh, CARO, okay. Caro.
Yeah, so
okay.
How do you describe what his job is? Because he's really just focused on audio. He's not building the technology platform. That's what I do.
Oh, okay.
So I'm the CEO and the CTO. So,
Okay.
but you have to distinguish between in this field, because there are two bits to the engineering. There's the technology engineering and there is the audio engineering. Two distinct
disciplines. Yeah.
and basically nobody was really interested in that. And then as we started to put the product together, we went out again, and then everybody goes, okay, so tell us who the competition are. And you go, the competition is engineering teams inside Dolby, Apple, Google, Facebook, etc. Right? And they go, okay, we're not interested because you're never going to get there. Right? And you go, okay, that's also fine. I kind of understand that. But at this point, you start to think, actually, what does this venture mean in this process? You know, is there any adventure in this at all? Where's the risk that you're trying to take?
You see, Garry, this is why I realise now why you have got an earring in.
Yeah.
This is the Be More Pirate.
Be More Pirate, yes.
Yeah? Ahar.
Ahar.
You should have come with your parrot on the shoulder. And you know, it's not Captain Jack, it's Captain Garry.
But this morning when I opened my wardrobe, I do have, which I hadn't really thought about. I have a summer shirt which has got like a kind of tied neck type thing. And I was thinking I could wear that and Andrew would definitely go, "Oh my God, you've turned up as a pirate." But yeah, but I chose not to go down that path, just in case. So, but yeah, so that process of trying to kind of, how do we get to the next stage? How do we get to the next stage? Knowing that it works, and it's like, because in that process, it's not like we have no traction. No, right? We've done 30 of those experiments from from that first one with Absolute Vodka through the Harry Potter experience. We've worked with CERN on sonifying the Large Hadron Collider for students who have visual impairments, right? So we've built like some really advanced audio projects, and each one of them is pushing the engine along, and we're showing that there is something there in the market, although the market hasn't yet crystallized around that process, and that's in part because of the technology that you can do. So the project that we did with CERN, you could not do with any of the existing technology, right? Because for it to happen, you need the experience to be much more out of head than you can get with the current spatial audio technology. Right. But also to make it convincing for people whose primary sense is hearing, right, where that's not controversial. So for the rest of us who are blessed with the ability of both sight and hearing, we can have a debate about which one is primary, right? But for them, there is no discussion, right? It is their primary sense, and for that to happen, you have to make it much more realistic. The experience has to feel more real. I suppose the spirit of a starter. You know that. I mean, this is the mantra. I suppose it's you got to be like a speedboat. You've got to be. That you've identified a gap in the market. You've identified that there's something that's not happening as it should happen. There's an opportunity here. Well, I suppose the question for me was about what keeps you going. Yeah. So, the thing that keeps us going is that every. So particularly during the early part, which was all the experiments, was the fact that we had passed each previous experiment, right? And this does come from my kind of corporate background in technology, where everything that we do is very clearly has milestones attached to it, and if you know. And you'll probably know which consultancy I worked from this. If you fail 3 milestones, finish the project. Right? It's like you're not getting anywhere. And we've never failed 3 in a row, and we've only failed once 3 times. Right? So, and that keeps you going. And then
you're not like Thomas Edison with his light bulb, then.
Yeah. And at the end of each experience, it's super rewarding, right? Because for every one of these experiences you do, you watch people engage with spatial audio in a new way, and so the so the last 3 months as we've been doing product development, we've also been doing these demos with people online. So we have done probably so far in 3 months, we've probably done about 120 demos.
Wow!
And the experience, and that's with multiple people in them, so it probably comes to about 200 people. And the experience when they get to the end, I transcribed all of this. So when they get to the end, the word that is used by 92% of people that have had the demo is impressive.
Right.
Right. And when you see that kind of experience, and we've done over those 30. So we have this other device which looks like a kind of spaceship, and we take it to conferences and things like that. And it's like you'll get a queue to come in because people go, "Wow, what is this? I want to have a go." And when they come out of that, and people go, "Wow, that was amazing! That's just blown my mind." Right, and those kind of things. When you get that kind of feedback from the end user, even though we're not selling directly to consumers,
yes, exactly,
we know that we're on the right path, right? And it's just then about saying, it's like we can see the mountaintop, and when we describe the mountaintop to people, they go, "I would like to go to the top of the mountain with you." So how do we get there in a way?
You raise an interesting point there. You raise an interesting point, I think, from what you just talked about was yours trying to sell a B2B relationship.
Yeah.
But what about if you created Kinicho as a consumer brand to create the tension by saying, "Oh, well, if you don't want to play, we're going to create our own go-to-market to go straight to the consumer, direct to consumer."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
just throwing it out there.
No, I think I've thought about that endlessly.
Okay.
So and there are two paths in our roadmap that has bifurcations that say here's a pivot to consumers.
Yeah.
Right, and there's one pivot which is like a software pivot which is for gamers, and that's a huge market. But it's like once I think it's one of those things. It's like as a startup, once you have an ideal customer profile and you're focused on that, that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
and you've got to deliver on that for them, and so making those pivots is you have to be really careful that you want to make that pivot, and that you're not just doing it because you like a rodent searching out food. You're just going against the next wall and against the next.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful not to do that. And then there's another one which is about going down the hardware route and solving the hardware problem.
Right.
And Eric Rees, who's somebody who I really value his opinion in this. His view is hardware is hard. Don't go there. It's just hard to do because the amount of moving parts and the amount of capital.
Yeah, the cost. I was going to say the capital balance sheet.
So you kind of so whatever we do, we're kind of always going to stay in software as our approach to that, and then it's just a case of working out what that process is and whether you're moving and how to keep moving forward. And I think it's that little bit is you kind of see those troughs, or your valleys, and the question is, I suppose, is when you're in that, is do you have a way of saying, this might be the bottom, but it might not be. There might be something.
You see what you've got. You've got the Kinicho branded crampons. Yeah.
Yeah.
So wherever you are down in the trench, you see you can climb out. You can climb out with your crampons.
Yeah. And we're reasonably good at that, at climbing out from it, and that's and.
I mean,
that thing's in, isn't it?
I mean, it sounds like the future's interesting. It's going to be very interesting. And if you map 10 years from now, I think it's going to be people are going to be saying Apple, Dolby, Kinicho,
yes,
or even actually Kinicho, Apple, Dolby.
Yeah. So, somebody said this last week. This is one of those things where it's like he had written a post. So it's a venture capitalist who's not in our game, but he's trying to help us because he sees what we're trying to do. And he's like, in the future, I want all media to be like this, and I want every headphone, whoever it comes from, to have a little K on it.
Yeah, powered by Kinicho.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. You know, and it's those kind of things that like keep you going, because when you get those interactions, and they're fuel that kind of go. We've got something. We might not know what it is yet, but let's just keep trying to find. And as long as you, and I think that process of trying to keep it real, but also
keep grounded,
but keep pushing on.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
This is definitely an ultra marathon.
Ultra marathon.
And what's the ones that there are some Buddhist monks do this like extreme form of running, where they run 13 marathons or 13 ultra marathons consecutively, so that they get to the point where when they stop, they're so bloody exhausted that when they meditate, they have no kind of energy left for the physical bit, which allows them to arrive at the kind of state of nirvana.
Oh, right.
Interesting. Which is
13 ultra marathons.
Yeah, consecutive.
So that's like 13 times 100 miles.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, they just get up in the morning and they run, and then they stop, and then they get up the next morning and they run, and then when they stop, they sleep, and then so on until they get to that point where they're so exhausted. So that they
I'll have to look at that. I'm just thinking about doing one ultra marathon in the next 15 months, but apart from that, not 13.
Yeah. Who did something like that? Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, that's right. He did 20 odd, didn't he? I think something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like an exciting times ahead. I mean, I suppose in terms of, one of the things that just triggered in when you were talking about was about, given what you're working on, what do you practice gratitude? Do you what are you grateful for? Because I think when you're looking at, it's a bit like how do you use that concept? Do you use that concept in keeping your mindset in the right place?
Not explicitly, I don't think. I think the thing that we probably do that's similar to that is constant appraisal of what we're doing, but between the two founders especially, that says, where we can say, every week at least, 3 or 4 times a week, we say well done to each other because
celebrate success. Yeah.
So, it's like, and be really honest about that, because it's like, because I think we each have different struggles that we're trying to deal with, and they kind of each materialize in a different way. And so that process of getting to those points and saying,
using each other to keep sane.
Yeah, and I think that's like, it's critical when you're doing something like this. And I've seen, I don't think Steve Jobs ever talked about anything like this, but I think Woz did. That when they were still in the garage and they were doing things that they had to find a way of doing that to stop Woz killing Jobs. that process, you have to do that because it's mentally tough. It's like, and especially, I think that's where some of those where you really feel the roughness of the valleys is in the months where you don't get paid, right? And those kind of
salary sacrifice, yeah,
and it's like, and that happens to us a lot. And so that's another thing that we do, all the time, is like we get to the point where we're running out of runway, and my view is that if you're running out of runway, we can pivot to being a service organization very quickly, just for a short time, and it's just about a choice as whether we do that or whether we stick with the development plan and kind of go with it. And, and as long as we don't run out of money to pay for the kind of infrastructure that we've built, it's not a huge cost, but it's there, till we get to that point. And it's like, and we've done that lots of times to do that. And, and sometimes it's like, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I did probably 9 months of Deliveroo, right? It's like, I've got on my bike and cycled to deliver food in the evening so that I can work in the day, and that we had enough money just to keep carrying us over, because the development goal was so close that it was like, let's not stop now, because it's like, if we stop, restarting the engine is going to be a challenge. It's like, so let's just keep going, and I'll just go out and I'll do that, and it's like, and that was like, it was absolutely exhausting. But also,
I've got this picture of you see now, going around Liverpool, in your lycra, in your bright green Deliveroo lycra.
Yeah,
that's an interesting image. That is, Garry.
Well, it's like, you've never met me in real life, because I look probably small, but I'm actually a giant. so I'm quite imposing when I've got all that gear on as well, which is a bit freaky. And but yeah, and so those things are about doing that, and it's like, and they don't come without personal cost either. It's like, Stefan and I both have partners and children and stuff like that, and it's like you're constantly aware of the choices that you're making have like real costs,
commitments,
and on your commitments for all.
So I mean, to wrap up, and I suppose that's the final question. I mean, one of the things we ask is to give or to share some kind of pearls of wisdom, some kind of there's obviously lots of people, a growing number of people listening to this podcast, which is great and fantastic, and really appreciate people subscribing and listening. And what would be your kind of pearls of wisdom that you would share back to other people listening to this podcast, about what you've learned on your journey, and what's some things to watch out for?
Hubris. Just watch out for hubris. It's like, and I think you have to just be really honest with yourself about what it is that you're doing, and and understand the purpose and the difference between your current, your purpose and your current mission, and and whether you've failed at the mission, right? And I think that little bit, and it's like, I've done that in other ventures that I've run, where you, if you kind of mistake some of those things, do real damage, not just to the business, but to yourself,
right?
And I think when you're kind of trying to be a founder, it's because you are in that process where it's quite hard to separate the business from yourself in the first instance. If you don't get that right, you will do yourself some personal damage and people around you. And to avoid that, you have to be very, very honest with yourself,
right, and
very clear about what you're trying to achieve, and whether it's achievable, and whether you're up for the fight. Right? And I think, and that process of trying to get those kind of things in order is the thing that, and I think ultimately all those things are about your own resilience, but you don't want to be resilient to being a punch bag if you're not trying to be a punch bag, and there's a danger that you can go, well, I'm just resilient and I get knocked down and I get up again. And it's like, you don't want to get
like
up again.
The ego and the macho side of it.
Yeah, you need to be careful of that, and because you can run yourself into a lot of dead ends, and it's like, and honestly, it's like, every day when I think about whether I'm doing the right thing, that's the thing that I fear the most is that every day is going to be the day when I realise that I've run into the dead end.
Right.
And that dead end is the mirror that says, it's like, you've made a colossal mistake here, Mr. Haywood. And that, So I don't know whether you know the kind of the lump cost fallacy that says, well, we've put a lot into it, so let's put some more.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, Stefan, this annoys the hell out of Stefan, but I'm like endlessly worried that that's what we're doing, and so.
Well, I mean, to give you a bit of positive confirmation, from the time that we've known each other and the stuff that I've seen that what you're doing, I think it's fantastic, and I would say, please keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's hard, it's tough, but I think that from what you described it to be, and hopefully people in the audience can hear, will come to the same conclusion. I think you're on a massively transformative mission, and I think you should continue.
Yeah,
but I know you obviously got to make your own choices around that. So
yeah, no, and one of the great things, Andrew, is that nearly everybody we encounter now today says that same thing, right? And it's like, and it's so heartwarming to kind of get people's response like that, and that it does really power you on. And I think, but to also make sure that, and it's part of that process is that when people are saying, carry on, you're going, yeah, it's like, I do want to carry on, but I still want to be sure that I'm carrying on in the right,
Well, you see, if all else fails, you see, Garry, what you can do is you can be a Beatleville tour guide.
Oh yeah, there are some very good ones of those, and I don't think I'll ever compare.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for being more pirate. And next time I explain. Next time you come on the show, I expect you to come with your full Captain Sparrow gear.
The next time, I will have the full Captain Sparrow gear on, and I will put the green screen behind me, and I will be on the deck.
Let's put the Jolly Roger up. We're coming. Kinicho. What's the company called? I forget what's called. Kinicho. Sorry, cool. That's about it. Kinicho. What's that? Kinicho. We put the Kinicho flag up. Choo choo.
Yeah. Choo choo.
Thank you very much for your time. And that was Garry Haywood, who's the co-founder and CEO of Kinicho. And if anybody wants to get hold of you, I presume, what's the best way of getting hold of you, by the way?
Probably the best way is via Twitter.
Okay.
I'm on there as Kinicho.
Okay.
And on LinkedIn as Garry Haywood, and it's pretty obvious that it's me because I'm the guy that looks like the pirate in the picture.
Arr.
Arr.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Garry. And that was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Have an amazing day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.